Hello, I'm Andy from Gaming Buggers, and welcome to the first Gaming Buggers podcast. In today's podcast, we'll be discussing the influence of soundtracks and the effect that they have on your gaming experience. Thank you for listening, and enjoy.
So soundtracks, who wants to start? Who's got a good soundtrack?
I fucking love the Fez soundtrack so much. Like, it's so perfect, and like it's one of the because Fez, there's no real like you'll know when you play it right. There's no real there's an aim because you essentially have to find these cubes that are scattered about the world. But there's no enemies, there's no if you fall off and die, you just respawn back on the last ledge. So the challenge isn't like the platforming aspect or fighting enemies. The challenge is exploring and solving these quite cryptic sequences. Because all of the sort of soundtrack ties in, any kind of sound effects that are in the game are done by the same guy. So it's very audio-visual in there's a lot of audio cues in really ominous. For instance, there's tears in the universe which you can see space through. The sound effect that he's put on that is terrifying. It sounds like a sort of crackling jet engine. So it works really well in all of the music. It's just, and there's more intimidating sort of mechanical places which have more sort of ominous music, and then there's ones where it's like a summary. And as well, because the sun rises and sets, it has a night and day cycle. There's sort of calmer ones and more sort of ominous ones for certain times of the day, and it's gorgeous. It's so nice.
Yeah, it's like when I bought it the other day off. There's a sale, like a Humble Bundle style thing going on with the Fez one, the FTL one. That. And I haven't even played the game. I've just listened to the soundtrack, and it does sound really good.
Yeah, it's by Disaster Piece, who has made some really cool albums. He also did, I think he did some of the music for, Bit Trip Runner.
Yeah.
That indie game that's heavily music based. He did I'm pretty sure he did some of the music for that.
But yeah, it's I prefer it when you have the same guy doing the whole soundtrack rather than it being different composers or different music tracks.
I would agree with that as well.
Final Fantasy has done so well from that.
Yeah,
well, they have quite a lot of different composers on that. I mean, different people. I mean, there's what's he called, Umatsu. He's the main guy, but there's different people.
I thought he was primarily in.
He is primarily the guy who comes up with everything. He does write the music and he composes everything. But there are other people who he works with. It's not all him. But he obviously oversees everything or has been overseeing everything. And I think up until about 13, every sound in the game, whether it was the sound of an enemy appearing or the victory music or an actual orchestral piece, everything was chosen by him, but it wasn't all created by him.
So he was the producer sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the two others were called Nakano and Hamayusa or something like that, and they all came in to do the various different games, but he was in all of them. So Final Fantasy X has all three of them, and I think it's generally considered to be one of the best soundtracks of all time.
It is beautiful, the Final Fantasy music. A lot of it's on Spotify and other music software is available.
It's even if you don't like Final Fantasy, it's still amazing.
Yeah, no, they're beautiful. They're really.
I can testify for that actually, because I've never played any Final Fantasy game. Yeah, I know the soundtracks by my hand.
Yeah, you love the soundtracks, don't you? I remember you playing something.
Yeah, well, the piano and everything. The piano collections of those soundtracks are fantastic.
Yeah,
that's when you've got a winning soundtrack in your hand, when you actually can listen to the soundtrack without playing the game. I've done that with Fez. I haven't played the game, but I've listened to the whole soundtrack.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those interesting things where, because I would say there's almost two separate kinds of soundtracks. There's soundtracks for example, Battlefield, where the soundtrack is a lot more. There are some tracks because there's some orchestral tracks and stuff in it, but where you would listen to it by itself. But most of it is very heavily, in exciting bits. Will be exciting music, and it's very kind of it's scored like a movie because it's meant to make you feel like you're in a war movie. And then there's something like Fez where it's because it's done by someone who primarily does electronica and chiptune songs as songs by themselves. If you like that type of music,
Yeah.
They are very good by themselves. And then there's, soundtracks which are more kind of just about like emphasizing certain moments. But then again, I was saying earlier that Fez does that as well, so maybe I'm wrong about it.
I'd agree with... Sorry, go on, Gav.
I was going to say, in terms of people that solely contributes to soundtracks, I don't think it gets any better than Jeremy Soule.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
The man is a genius. The guy that did Oblivion, Skyrim, the Total Annihilation soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely. Oblivion's my favourite all-time soundtrack.
Oblivion has an excellent soundtrack, like, it really does. But I'd say, going back to your earlier, Sean, when you said there's two different types of soundtracks, I'd actually say there's, like, at least the third or a fourth on there as well, because you've got the sort of, like you say, movie-style orchestral pieces and stuff that's been created specifically for the game, and then you've got things like Quake, where like 9 Inch Nails have done songs for Quake, and it's like GTA Vice City having that full like actual real world music soundtrack.
The radio stations
that goes on it. So there's that, like, sometimes real world music can make what like a game so much better than it actually is. I think definitely
it can work in two ways as well, because the Quake example, where that's just because it's a brilliant song that you might listen to while you're playing the game anyway. It's a good song in itself. In the Grand Theft Auto example, it's emphasizing the real world, kind of like it's making it more believable. Having radio stations, and it makes it more like a complete universe.
Absolutely.
I was reading the other day a Yahtzee video. He was talking about how in the new Saints Row they license lots of real world music for the use in the vehicles in the game. But because you can like fly around all over the place, there's no reason for anyone to get into the cars. So they had to crowbar in a reason for you to drive around, so they could make benefit of all the licensing music that they put in.
That's interesting.
Like an afterthought.
I was quite surprised. Well, actually, I shouldn't be surprised because he fucking loved Saints Row 2, but he had very good things to say about Saints Row 4. Has anyone played Saints Row 4?
I have, and it's not very good. And the reason it's not very good is not because it's not a good game. It is. It's a very good game. It's very polished. But the problem with it is that when you add both guns and superpowers, it's like there is literally no challenge whatsoever to it. No matter what difficulty you put it on, you have something to deal with every single situation from the very start of the game. That's the problem with it. It's hilarious.
So you don't earn it.
No, exactly. It's hilarious. It's fun, but there is no challenge to it whatsoever. So you play it for about an hour and then think, I want to play something else.
It's like a sandbox.
It's like a sandbox, exactly.
It's like there are other with all the cheats turned on.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like. And it's like there are other games that do it better. I'd say Oblivion and GTA do what Saints Row does in a much better fashion.
Yeah. Did anybody ever play Prototype 1 or 2?
I played the first one. I never played the second one. I didn't really enjoy it either, actually.
I would say that's almost like the same thing, because like, although it's quite challenging in terms of Prototype, but essentially the one of the things that you have to do is take over territory from the infected and take over army bases, and it turns very much into like territory control. In although the location changes, the actual actions that you do when you're there, like you have to go infiltrate the base, like destroy a certain number of troops, or like reduce the health of the base or something. I can't remember exactly how that bit works. So like after a while, you're doing that. It's not really that challenging. So you're spending a lot of time like flying around the place, eating people. Like it's really fun, but like after a while, you're bored and there's no challenge. So I played both Prototype and 1 and 2, and I didn't finish either of them because after a while there was no point. It just after an hour, you just can't be asked to play it.
I think as well what you're saying there, like I think it applies to Crackdown as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like when you get to that point where you've like got all of the points, you're on the full level, you got all the guns. It does get to the point where it's like, well,
Crackdown 1 had a great boss structure.
That's it. Like Ryle attested to this as well. Like we played Crackdown 1 to its death, and like overplayed it almost to the point where it was like there was literally nothing less for us to do. And then we played Crackdown 2, and it was just like, we could do this or we could do that, but there was no point to it. There really wasn't.
Yeah.
I had more fun on the Crackdown 2 demo with the restrictions that there were.
Like because we played the Crackdown demo and it was brilliant.
Trying to get under that like shield that they had around the whole area. We were trying to get under it by jumping off buildings, diving under the water, and trying to go under it.
That had like more of a point than the actual game did. Like I enjoyed that more than the game.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, definitely.
Because it had more of a purpose.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said as well, Chris, before about how if a game's got a good soundtrack, it can make the game better. Like I think that applies to Oblivion and Skyrim. Like Skyrim is a better game. I think in pretty much every aspect, Skyrim is the better game. It's just more polished. But the soundtrack for Oblivion is better, and I've just got more fond memories of Oblivion than Skyrim.
I don't know. That cinematic immersion, it really helps. Like I totally agree. Skyrim is a more polished game. There's a lot more depth. There's more variation in the things you encounter and all the rest of it. But I think the Oblivion soundtrack is better. There's more like melodies that are not appropriate, but like memorable. Like there's times when I hear the soundtrack years after I've played Oblivion, and it reminds me of those moments. But the Skyrim soundtrack, it doesn't. I don't have moments where I think, oh yeah, that's that song from Skyrim.
Yeah. That's good.
Absolutely.
All right, so everyone, what would you say is your top 3 soundtracks of all time?
I would say that the Braid soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. And Gav, if you haven't heard that, you would love it because it's all classical, and it suits the Braid. It suits the Braid aesthetic and everything beautifully because it's all kind of gently floating, kind of like cloud patterns and very kind of classical sort of frames in a painterly style. And it adds such a weight to it feels so much more. It makes it so much more than just a puzzle game, and is also just a beautiful soundtrack.
Yeah,
in itself.
Yeah, I agree with that one, definitely. I think in terms of the top 3, I'm not quite sure, but top 2 probably Oblivion and Mass Effect. The Mass Effect soundtrack is great. It's just very, very ambient, and it just like it's not too much.
That world so perfectly,
It does, and it just kind of immerses you a bit more.
I've got to admit, I couldn't hum you a single melody from the Mass Effect 2 soundtrack. Yeah, but I always remember it fitting the mood very, very well, which is the sign of a good soundtrack that's trying to immerse you.
Yeah, there was nothing abrasive about it whatsoever. It was
they could have done the whole action movie route and had all dramatic music,
but they could have gone the like cheesy kind of like sci-fi, movie kind of.
Well, they kind of did a little bit. Like I did see definitely, especially the Normandy. Like when you're walking around the Normandy, it was very similar to Blade.
Synth pads and everything.
Yeah, I thought it was very similar to Blade Runner. Like it just sounded so much like it, but at the same time, it didn't. It wasn't so much like Blade Runner that it was a ripoff, and it didn't sound like it was just a cheesy knockoff of that either. It perfectly fit what they were going for, but there was just enough references to it that was like, yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool.
And it's just one of those soundtracks which I just got afterwards, and I would just kind of put it on while I'm browsing and stuff, just in the background, just some ambient music, and it's it's just a really nice soundtrack. So they're probably my top 2.
Okay,
but I think Braid as well is a really good example.
Braid is a phenomenal soundtrack. How about you?
My top 3, let's see. Well, hands down, Oblivion takes the #1 spot. It's the best soundtrack. I would say, seriously, it's a contender for the best soundtrack that's ever been made.
Okay.
But I have to also say, Pokemon are the early Pokemon games.
Yeah, man, I was thinking that.
It's unmentioned so far, but absolutely phenomenal.
That would be in my top 3 as well.
I'd say underrated as a soundtrack.
Massively underrated.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard like transcripts afterwards of people playing those melodies on piano instead of like 8-bit, and it's fantastic. It's so complicated melodies.
Of the Pokemon songs are amazing as well.
I mean, even the synth versions are great, but the orchestral versions are another level. But yeah, I agree with that.
The way that even the I forget. God, let him down the side. I forget the name of the ghost town, but that really famous, really creepy melody.
Lavender or something.
Yeah, Lavender Town.
Yeah, and like especially in the originals. On the colour one where the town was purple. I don't know why, but I always remember just that monochrome purple in that creepy music made it a lot more creepy than the later games when they had that. And that might partly be the crudeness of the graphics as well, but brilliant soundtrack.
I mean, the latest soundtracks are good as well, but they're not as good as the first. I don't know if it was just, like a generation thing. I was young,
like nostalgia and all
maybe,
that.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Yeah,
but I think it's the root I think it might be Route 2 or something. I can't remember. It's one of my favorite, hands down, one of my favorite little melodies of all time. It's lovely.
We'll put a handful of links in the description.
Yeah, I'll put a link.
Find the ones that we need. Yeah. So okay, there's 2. What's your number 1 then, or number 3?
Number 3. It's quite obscure.
Okay.
I think the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack from the
SNES. Nice.
Because at the time things weren't that good, rare, and they had it nailed, man. For that time, the graphics and the soundtrack were fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, these days you look back at it and it sounds kind of simplistic and everything, but I remember when that came out and it blew my mind, man.
Yeah.
I would say that
ahead of its time.
I would say that Sonic 2 from the Mega Drive is
all great.
I'd say my top 3 now we've been discussing it, are probably Braid, early Pokemon in general, and earlier sort of not quite Master System but Mega Drive era, especially Sonic games, because they are just phenomenal. And there's loads of game soundtracks that I adore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think those 3 are probably somebody at work put on Sonic 2, one of the songs from Sonic 2 a while ago, and it was just like, again, it's partly nostalgia, partly just like that generation thing.
Yeah.
But it hit us right in the nostalgia feels like.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I can still almost note for note remember the Sonic 2 boss fight music. Like even now, I can remember it, how it goes. And, that's the one. That's the one. I can still have it. I still have it in my head.
The intro music of.
Yeah,
oh, God.
Yeah, and I think that's
Jesus.
Terrible rendition.
I think that's the mark of a good soundtrack, though, is that you still remember it 20 years later down the line, word note for note, even the little inflections on the tones, you know where it's going to come in.
Yeah, I even remember at the end when. If you left it for too long and it went to a demo stage, it'll go do it would go up at the end, a little inflection just on the last note as a cut to the next screen. That's a good soundtrack.
The Pokemon soundtracks, Red and Blue, they're 14 years old now.
Yeah, but they're still.
I could sing you the whole thing. I'm not going to.
Also
I'm not
sure. No, good.
I think, don't drag this production down any further. I would say as well, there's something to be said for composition that is good, and that because especially the Pokemon ones, for example, I'll use Pokemon as an example. It has to loop for the entire time that you're in that area, and not be annoying. Yeah. Because there's plenty of games where the background or looping background audio, because you spend a decent amount of time in each Pokemon town, and it could so easily have gotten irritating, and it just doesn't, and it doesn't sound like, you don't notice the joins. It flows very nicely into itself.
Yeah, it's not like you can write a song that's going to start in the middle and an end. It doesn't build to anything. There's no crescendo or anything. It's just a loop of something that is lovely.
Yeah, and a lot of the orchestral versions and stuff do kind of, turn it into more of a 3-minute track. But it works. It does work.
I think from a personal point of view, honorable mentions have to go to Sonic. Honorable mentions have to go to Pokemon, and probably the Quake soundtrack as well. They're all
Quake 2, boom! What a soundtrack!
Yeah. All 3 of those franchises, let alone the games, but the franchises have excellent soundtracks. But none of them are in my top 3. Third would be Metal Gear Solid 2, which arguably has the best theme music of any game of it, ever. But the menus, everything about that soundtrack was spot on, man. It was good, but then it doesn't quite have the same nostalgia feel, because obviously Harry Gregson Williams is that's what he does as a living. He does film soundtracks. He is a very heavy hitting, gets you in the gut sort of emotional.
It's a very full sound.
Yeah. So, but it's not it doesn't hit you in the nostalgia gut, and I still think you need that for it to be your favorite. So number 2 is going to be Silent Hill 2, which was so fucking good.
Oh man! Can I have 6 choice?
Yeah, Silent Hill as a franchise again is another one that has excellent music. But number 2 was just perfect. Everything about it was perfect.
Excellent.
Laura's theme was just the best. Oh man, even now I can't even
Silent Hill 2
as
well is so based on the fact that a lot of the monsters chase you. It's very creepy. It's very lonely. In the music and the ambience is really important to that. And Silent Hill 2 does it absolutely brilliantly.
Absolutely. And then number 1, I'm gonna go with a Final Fantasy one. It could be any between 6 and like 14, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with 10. I think 10 is probably the best.
Yes.
Because I think it's surprising. I think the game probably isn't as good as other games, but the soundtrack, everything, the choices that they made for each area and each part of, you've got like the beginning, the middle, and the end sort of thing. But whichever part it was, they nailed the ambience behind it. 100%, 100% nailed it.
And as well, Final Fantasy X the soundtrack was especially important to 10 because it was the first one with the voice acting. So whereas before, while you had the text screens, you could scroll. It was the same thing with the looping melodies that we were just talking about. It had to be able to, you had to be able to leave that text screen on for indefinitely. Whereas with the sort of more traditional cutscenes that you then had on 10, where you have. Because I had cutscenes before that, but they still didn't have speaking.
No.
So once you had that, they had to nail that where the right music at the right moment. Very much like a film score, and they got it so perfect. It got away with so much bad dialogue 10 because the score was so good.
That's what I was going to say. Is that the actual voice acting is terrible compared to the soundtrack. I'd rather turn the voice acting off, go back to what it was before with just being text-based, and have that score, and just listen to that score like unimpeded by anyone else.
Like Pokemon.
Scene.
Yeah, definitely. That sort of style, I think, is underrated, and I think people now, or developers now, think they have to include a voice track on everything, and it really doesn't matter to me whatsoever. Like,
I think a lot of indie games are picking up that slack there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, from the outsider's perspective, I've never played any of them, but I have every soundtrack that they've ever released in all formats. It would be between 10 and 7.
Yeah, Gary. I mean, 7 is my favourite game of all time, but I do think 10's soundtrack was just ever slightly better.
Yeah. I prefer Final Fantasy VIII as a game, just pure. I know why it is. It's because that one was the first one that I got. So it just has that feeling for me. But although I love 8, and I think the music on 8 is brilliant, I know more tracks. I can remember more tracks from 7 because they're so recognisable. Cloud's theme and the intro music, and everything is so recognisable from 7.
The main theme to 7 still, to this day, if you put it on, doesn't matter what format it is, whether it's the original synth version or whether it's the orchestral version or just the pure piano version, doesn't matter. I still get goosebumps to this day when that, the proper main part of it kicks in. It's like, Have
there been any memorable soundtracks that you think have ruined a game? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. And I can't think
soundtracks. That's harder, actually.
Soundtracks.
Bad soundtracks tend to go with bad games, and I don't tend to play bad games. So,
I mean, there's.
I genuinely can't think of a good game for bad soundtrack. Off the top of my head.
There's been a few games. I have to admit, it's been a few games where I've replaced the soundtrack with my own soundtrack in terms of what I've got in iTunes. I did that with notably EVE Online and Minecraft.
EVE Online?
Minecraft.
You did it with EVE Online?
Yeah, I did it with EVE Online, definitely. Get rid of the EVE Online soundtrack. The same with Minecraft especially as well. Although the Minecraft soundtrack is good. And you
what
can
I
listen
would
to it.
do with Minecraft, right? The Minecraft soundtrack itself is
Uninstall it.
brilliant. C418 is C418 is a really, really good composer. And he's done some absolutely lush stuff. I don't know, maybe. But
like R2D2, but a bit crapper.
Yes, yeah. But anyway, so the soundtrack's great, but the implementation of it is it basically fades really in and out. It'll fade in just randomly and then fade out randomly. And it's just not often enough. And he's made so much. They're still using. I mean, I haven't actually played in a while. I might have updated the sound by now. But there was still, until fairly recently at least, they were still using the ones that he gave them in alpha stage and hadn't added any more in it. Yeah. So I would quite often just put the album of the Minecraft music on. You can craft jukeboxes and put records in them and shit. Fuck that bollocks. I just want a sound option, man.
Yeah. Sure it is. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. I was just going to say, and then you uninstall it after that. Go on, Gav.
Yeah, I wish you would. Fucking
Never.
Minecraft.
He loved Minecraft. Don't tell me that you didn't enjoy our Minecraft sessions.
What a game. In the bad way.
Don't change me.
What does deserve an honourable mention? Just because it's quite distinctive, and I think if I played one of you guys a little snippet of it, you'd know what it was. The original Sims, the like buy and build menu music.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
No,
absolutely.
No.
I'm not saying it's good. This is what I was thinking. I've been
Good.
thinking still about good games with bad soundtracks.
Oh man, I'd go again.
Somehow
I was
you
waiting
got
for the
on
bite.
the topic of the Sims.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
I was like,
There we go.
what?
No,
Just
like it's like the game was pretty crap. It was a rubbish game. It was, you know, people had the hype about it at the time. It was rubbish. But the buy and build menu music, I don't know, maybe it's just because I like piano, but it was lovely. It was really nice.
just to like go from that as well. One thing I can't believe I actually forgot. SimCity.
I was going to say SimCity.
Like
as
my
well.
god, like
SimCity
the original
4.
SimCity, SimCity 4 as well, or 3000 or whatever. I mean, they were all like fantastic build menu soundtracks, like really good. And you had like the jazzy soundtracks when the actual game is running as well. Like they were fantastic. Can't believe I forgot that actually.
I've thought of a game that I love that I don't like the soundtrack for, actually.
Really?
Oh,
None of you have played it, but The Binding of Isaac. I turn the music off The Binding of Isaac now because it's a great soundtrack. Like, I've actually listened to the soundtrack, and it does a really good job of being, like, ominous and making it feel creepy and stuff, and it's especially exciting during boss fights when it kicks on a different song. But it's just, there's a lot of repeated things, and it just kind of great. I'll tell you what it reminds us of. It reminds us of the Risk soundtrack, which I know you like having on, Chris, but you know how it's kind of like intense, almost like battle music, but it just endlessly repeats. So it just kind of gets on my nerves a bit. I don't know.
yeah.
Oh man, honorable mention as well. Red Alert. Red Alert soundtrack.
Yeah, it
soundtrack.
was decent.
I like that soundtrack.
It's mostly that one song, to be honest. So, like Hellmarsh,
Just
whatever it was called.
The one with the tricky guitar riffs in it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the games back then had good soundtracks. It was around that era, like Quake and everything. If you listen to them now, it's like a metal band.
They're still
it's
good.
Crazy.
Yeah.
They're still good.
People,
yeah.
I think, do you
Games
think
don't do that anymore?
This is complete hypothesis, but do you think people, because it was kind of around the time when CDs were just starting to be used, like with the PlayStation stuff, do you think people were like excited to make use of the extra hards, like the extra storage space on the disc?
I still think that's
more...
true today. No, I honestly still think that's true today. I think like the advent of Blu-ray and things like that, they put more and more complex and more impressive sounding soundtracks on games. Like GTA 5 has got like 240 real-world tracks and then a full like track that's been, or not track, but orchestral piece that has been made just for GTA as well, and they've put that together on one game, and it's like I genuinely think people do get excited about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll appeal to everyone's tastes, but it's a good soundtrack from my perspective. Crazy Taxi.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It was a really short soundtrack, that, but it was good.
Universal agreement.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It was a great game, and it was a great soundtrack.
Yeah, people forget about that because it was on the failcast.
Job done. Well, it came out on the PlayStation as well, so.
It was quite big at the arcades as well, apparently. You know, when arcades like
the original version,
could actually make money.
I know you're all gonna disagree with this, or probably most of you haven't played it, but Halo's soundtrack is ridiculously good. Even if you hate
I played
the game.
the original.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it, but the soundtrack was good.
Three.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is great.
Myself and Gav's little brother once got horrendously destroyed by Gav and our friend, actually, on the original Halo. I have a very strong memory of like us being absolutely fucking horrible at it, and you two just destroying us wherever we went.
Not much has changed. I mean, that was 12 years ago.
I'm still appalling at online FPS. It's a genuine fact.
I think that was the first time we noticed the skill gap.
You're not playing Counter-Strike after this, right?
Yep.
So bad at third-person shooters.
Counter-Strike's probably an example of a game where the game is great and the music isn't. I don't like it at all. Have to turn it right down. Yeah.
Did Half-Life 2 have a good soundtrack? I don't remember.
I think it did. I think it had one of those soundtracks that was because, like Mass Effect, it didn't like get in the way. It just suited it.
I remember there not being much soundtracking parts, so I remember a lot of like sounds and just effects.
Yeah, I remember that being the same for the first one as well.
I was just going to say, I remember, for example, when you get in certain situations, like when you get in a car on certain Dune scripted moments, like the kind of like dun 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 dun, like exciting sort of pacing music kicked in.
It was actually quite cheesy in that respect, I thought, because there were like set pieces, like action set pieces in that game, where like that's when there would just be full on action music, and then it would just like out of nowhere.
At the time, like that's why one of the reasons why Half-Life 2 is kind of considered to be so good, because it was one of the early ones that was doing that kind of that level of it's scripted action sequence. I mean, it's good in a way; it's refreshing, but like it's scripted action sequences, but it never takes control away from you.
Yeah.
Which, so I guess not dated actually per that, but there's a lot. I forget how scripted it is. It's very, very linear.
I think it's like slight improvements that FPSs have now improved upon that I think if they introduced the Half-Life 2, it would make it even better, but I do see what you mean, like when you go back and it's like, oh, I just wish it had this, or I just wish it had that. Yeah. But for its time, when it first came out, it was like, it was amazing. It really was amazing, yeah.
I think the Resident Evil had a good soundtrack as well. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Number 2 as well, where you'd like go through a door and it would just have that like that little piece of music.
Kind of
like... Can you remember when
melancholic?
Sometimes like you would open the door and there would be a zombie like behind the door, like on that
in the door,
sequence. In like
that was
I remember
bullshit.
one specific bit where I nearly shot myself.
That pisses me off to this day. I hated that shit.
Yeah.
I was too young to be playing that. When with that added in, bad times, man.
Kingdom Hearts is a great soundtrack as well. I know none of you have played it, but it's really, really good soundtrack.
Kingdom
Hearts. Is that like an old SNES game or something?
Kingdom Hearts. No, it's the
it's
cross between Final Fantasy and Disney. Yeah.
What the hell am I thinking of?
Right response. Oh, God.
I think. Are you thinking of Chrono Trigger?
Oh yes, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Chrono Trigger.
Yeah,
that is a good soundtrack.
Which again, is a great soundtrack, but I think some people actually consider Chrono Trigger to be one of the best soundtracks of all time, but I've never really rated it that highly.
No, I think it's nice.
Maybe it's because I've never played the game when it first came out, and I never really finished the game either, so it might just it might be the whole nostalgia thing again.
I'll tell you what else is a good soundtrack I've just thought of. Has anyone played Bastion?
Yeah, it's a great soundtrack.
I've not played Bastion, I've heard a lot about it.
Very good audio work all around.
We'll have to put some tracks on that up after this, because that does have some excellent one-offs, I'd say.
Yeah. It's a Zaha's theme, I think it's called.
I can't remember the character's called, name. But yeah.
It's that specific song with the kind of harp that the character sings, and it's very good. And obviously the narrator on Bastion is like one of the main reasons to play it.
Well, I think Bastion's another example of where there's like been one guy who's the whole soundtrack. It's called Darren Korb or something like that.
Yeah, he's very good. It's on Spotify.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be doing the one on the PS4 as well, Transistor. It's like the sequel to Bastion, but
I remember that. Yeah,
sort of semi-sequel to it. Yeah, the soundtrack to that. I remember just at the E3 presentation for it, just thinking, man, that is going to be amazing.
Yeah, Castle Crashers. That has a great soundtrack.
Oh yeah, Castle Crashers, Jesus.
That is a good soundtrack.
It is.
Game's kind of rubbish, but
it's mental.
I tell you, to be honest, we don't even really need to discuss soundtracks anymore, because obviously the clear winner is Tony Hawk's 2.
That is a solid soundtrack.
Tony Hawk's 2, yeah. No one's going to
Man, I actually completely forgot about that, and I actually completely 100% agree with you that is the best soundtrack of all time.
Hit us just at the right age, just with the right demographic of music.
Exactly.
Oh god!
That's
there are people on there that like I still listen to this day.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Millencolin before, and now Millencolin are like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, that's
Rage
one of those ones
Machine Guerrilla Radio, like all of it.
I hate AC/DC, but I think it was Tony Hawk's 3 had Dynamite on the intro, and it was such a fucking belting intro. It fitted it perfectly.
That's one of those prime examples, isn't it, of like different tracks coming together to make like a mint soundtrack. It's a rare thing.
Yeah, and perfectly suited to the subject matter. Like, really, really perfect.
I think that there's too many games with brilliant soundtracks, and we should wrap up and move on. Because when I think about it, I just every couple of seconds I'm like, that was good, that was good, that was good.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
this will end up being 5 hours long.
Okay, I think we can all agree there are good soundtracks, and then we'll just leave it at that.
Do you want to have a brief chat about anything that's going down at the minute in the old
stuff that's coming
industry?
out?
Yeah, stuff that's coming out, stuff that people have seen on the intertubes. Chris, you're pretty good now.
Well, I was saying to Rye earlier that I think GTA 5 is an interesting one because I'm not as excited about that as I was for like Vice City or other GTA games. But I think if it's anything less than the greatest game in the world, then it's going to be a disappointment.
That's the thing. They're on the pedestal now and going to get judged heavily.
Yeah. And
every
the trailers
aspect,
and every like little bit of morsel of information that they've released so far has all been like people have had their minds blown. So I think if the game doesn't live up to this, then like people are going to be disappointed.
And as well at this stage, like even tiny little things like if the bicycles handle slightly differently than I'm used to, it'll be like I can already see the posts on Reddit. Does anybody else think that the controls in Vice City were better than the controls in the new one? Like,
in fact, I know, drifting back in the soundtracks, but I can imagine the first thing on Reddit's going to be GTA 5. Soundtrack wasn't as good as Vice City, and then it's like a picture of Vice City up.
This GTA had the true best soundtrack, like, and then fixed, and then a photo of GTA London.
God.
GTA London, Jesus.
Did anyone play The Getaway back in the day? Like Station 1, The Getaway? Was just like...
No.
It was just GTA in London.
I always quite like Driver.
Driver was brilliant.
Driver was good,
That was okay.
The physics were fucking retarded.
That was made
in
in
no
the
sense,
North of England as well, yeah. It's made in Newcastle.
Was it? Oh, no way.
Yeah, there's a like a branch of Ubisoft called Ubisoft Reflections. It's one of the two developers in Newcastle, Ubisoft Reflections and CCP, and the other one. As in EVE Online, yeah.
CCP got an office in Newcastle? No way.
They do, yes, yeah,
cool.
yeah. The only two developers in Newcastle.
Oh wow.
But Driver was made by them.
That's cool. I think GTA generally
and Driver 2 and Driver 3 as well.
I'm expecting that to get 10s all around, pretty much 9s or 10s. I can't see it getting less.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't either. I will be disappointed if it's not the best game of all time.
Well, they've messed about with it for long enough.
Yeah.
But it's very much like a presidential candidate or something. It's like, oh, you looked at four beers years ago. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Every single aspect of it.
Yeah.
If there's something slight wrong, they'll get the harshest criticism. It'll be obscene.
Which is totally
pull it
unfair,
apart. I mean, if it was a new release, it'd be like the best game ever. But because it's a continuation of a long-running series, that's well-known,
especially
popular.
GTA.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's a big franchise.
There's very few other games with the same scope and budget. Well, apparently, it's somebody told this to me, Chris, you might know different, but apparently it's the most expensive video game of all time, and there's only been one film that's more expensive than it.
Yep, and that's Avatar.
Really? Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Avatar's the only entertainment franchise that's more expensive than GTA 5.
I take back what I said then.
I was looking at
better be the best game ever.
I was looking at the list of games. The second most expensive game of all time was Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO game.
Oh god.
It was like to put it into context. Like I think GTA's racked up something like $250 million worth of development costs, and think the Old Republic was something close to it, like with like $235 million worth of development costs or something like that. And Final Fantasy VII back in the day cost like 50 million, and that was considered like really, really, really expensive. To put it even more in context, though, Black Ops 2 cost less than 10 million to make. So you think this Christmas when GTA and Ghosts come out, the Rockstar are not going to make as much money as Activision are on Call of Duty because they literally are just repurposing every single little facet of the Call of Duty franchise, and it's going to sell about the same amount of copies.
Yeah.
I wonder how much Railroad Tycoon 2 cost to make.
I'm gonna say they probably did it for free. In fact, I think someone probably paid them to do it.
Wasn't it done as community service by
yeah.
criminals and murderers?
I think they had to pay you to have the game. Like, please have our game.
The chief offender was in charge of the soundtrack.
It was Take-Two Interactive, man.
Oh, was it Take-Two?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Well, they're the parents of GTA.
Yeah.
Yeah. No wonder they stopped doing. I was gonna say no wonder they stopped doing Railroad Tycoon when they found out that action violence sells a bit better than fucking trains do.
Man, they should make like crossover where like you rob trains.
You can run the train system, but then you can actually go into the city and like ride the trains and mug people on them.
Oh god.
Railroad Theft Auto.
You can steal the trains. Can you steal trains on the new Grand Theft Auto? Because that's what I always wanted to do.
I don't think you can. No.
Well, 0 out of 10.
Yeah.
Is that wrapped up? So there's 2 games I want to talk about that are coming out soon. Planetary Annihilation.
Yep.
And Pokemon X and Y. Both exciting.
Yeah. Pokemon X and Y. Yeah. Jesus.
Finally 3D.
I didn't know where you were going to go with these games, Gav, but I'm really excited that you said those things.
Gav, are you excited for Pokemon X and Y in itself, or just because of the new Pokemon will add to Showdown and the new mechanics that will add to Showdown?
Well, let's not kid anyone. It's all about the metagame. No one gives a shit about the little storyline. It's the same storyline that they've used in every Pokemon game since Red and Blue. It's always the same.
Black and White was slightly different. Black and White 2 and Black and White were apparently had more of a plot. I didn't finish Black and White, but...
I did. I played every single Pokemon game that's come out ever.
Yeah.
Was it a good story?
Including the trading card game, which was excellent.
Yeah,
yeah, it was. I was talking to somebody about Pokemon Snap the other day.
Oh my god,
what a game!
Jesus.
Formative in my photography training.
Pokemon Pinball was good.
Yeah, Pokemon Pinball had the Rumble pack. I always remember that like big things above the Game Boy that like vibrated.
Came with it. Yeah.
The only 2 games I played of Pokemon was Red on the original Game Boy when that came out, which is brilliant. And was it Arena on the 64?
Yeah, it was.
Arena. Arena was
right. Arena.
Yeah.
Oh wait, it was Stadium, wasn't it?
Oh, Stadium. Yeah, that's the one. Stadium.
Sorry, Arena was the GameCube one, I think.
Yeah, the sort of more plot like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was good.
Now it's like on the Wii, it's called Rumble or whatever it is. Something.
I wish Showdown would make like, even if it was rudimentary, a 3D version. I don't know how they would do it, but that would be incredible. Essentially just Pokemon Showdown. Incidentally, I guess we should say in the event that somebody listens to this, that Pokemon Showdown is a website where you battle Pokemon and just choose.
It's like a small gun offshoot thing where they.
A simulator,
yeah. Actually, that's a really good point, Sean. I don't know how they're going to get the new Pokemon into that particular format because they're not sprites anymore. They're actually full-on 3D animated Pokemon.
I've seen some screens and it looks like they've just sort of made little 3D models of them. Obviously, they look decent. From what I've seen anyway. I don't quite understand how they're going to do some of the animations for the moves because they were quite vague in the original games. Like specific move animations made no sense. It was just the screen flashed a bit or something.
The way that they've done that because for the past couple of Pokemon games, they have been animated, the sprites, and do react to getting hit and that kind of thing. And the way that they've done the vague ones there, I think they'll just do... Because if you remember Pokemon Stadium, that had the same problem. And that, for some of them, were just very vague.
Yeah, I remember that.
Colours and, blobs of... I think Confuse Ray was just a purple, like circular blob that just hit the enemy and then they were confused.
Yeah, it was. It was like a squiggly line.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I am considering buying a 3DS XL just for Pokemon X and Y. I will not play any other Nintendo game on that system. I will buy it just for that game.
I'll buy a Pokemon 2DS. I'll buy a Nintendo 2DS and play it on there. No broken hinges for me. I can't be trusted.
Get your system out of your bag on the tube that's like made for 7-year-olds, and everyone's looking at you like, see if it's special.
Well, I borrowed a Pokemon manga off my girlfriend the other day, and I was reading that on the tube on the way back home from work, and I was just like, yep.
No shame.
Pokemon manga and girlfriend are not two things that can be said in the same sentence.
And that's why I'm very lucky.
Well, thank you.
But I am looking forward to the showdown version of it, though. Definitely.
Yeah, well, it's all about the metagame. I mean, like the actual game itself might be interesting. You know, there might be some new features which seem pretty cool. I'm not too fussed about this Mega Evolution thing. It sounds kind of I don't know. It's a bit gimmicky. Like you have to have a certain item, and then in battle you can like Mega Evolve. It's like it's getting a bit Power Ranger-esque. But
what I like about it though, Gav, from like the showdown point of view, is that it does make an interesting dynamic and an interesting contrast to like just having a life orb or just having EVO light or whatever it is that we put on Pokemon as like the standard item to have for each Pokemon. Now you're gonna have to think: do you go with that and not have the Mega Evolution, or is the Mega Evolution gonna really like outweigh everything else? And then
I can imagine it'll be used. Timing will be crucial with it. I can imagine that doing it in the correct time will be able to completely turn a game around.
Yeah, because exactly. If you get a super effective or a 4-time super effective hit off against someone while they're Mega Evolving, then that's like a move gone right there.
Can you just explain the mechanics of the Mega Evolving? Because I'm not sure I've really read up about it properly.
It's not fully released, like they haven't told all the details yet, but from what I understand, you have to have a certain item on your thing, and you can use it like you would a normal use item, and it Mega Evolves it in battle. And the most interesting thing that I think metagame-wise about it is that some of the Pokemon, not all of them, some of them just get more stats, it'll shift their stats differently. Some of them shift type as well, though.
Yep.
So you could garner a resist against someone that you didn't previously have or something, which might be interesting. Nice little strategic shift.
But you do also have to use it, so you have to use that item, you have to Mega Evolve while you're in battle, so you do have to use a turn up to do it.
Yeah.
Is there any limitations on it? Can you do it in one battle and then do it again in the next battle, or...?
I don't know.
That's what's... I don't know if you then swap it out, whether you have to Mega Evolve again, or whether he's already, like, Mega Evolved or whatever. That is a bit unclear.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much speculation with this as well, and they haven't really given that much away yet, but...
Yeah.
What is the release date for it?
It's October.
25th.
I think it's... No, it's
October
January.
25th.
Chris hasn't memorized.
It is October 25th.
They've brought it forward, I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure UK release date's October 25th. I might have brought it forward in America.
No, I remember reading that it's worldwide. It's the first time that they're bringing them all out at the same time.
Well, really? Okay.
Chris speaking from the line at game already, waiting for this game to come out.
Yeah. Been in line for like the last week or something like that.
They've shifted it. It's October the 12th, worldwide release.
Wow, really? I've never heard that before. Like, it go from like a whole month.
Yeah, normally you'd have to wait a long time, but now it's all at the same time, which is good. It's good. So
when did they announce this? Like, that's crazy.
I don't remember when I read it, but yeah, it's getting pushed forward. It's all coming out at the same time for the first time, which is interesting.
That's really cool.
Do you think they're going to build a strong, like, online, sort of amount of people playing each other at once by just releasing it all in the same place so everybody can just play each other?
Probably. I mean, there's no reason in this day and age why you should have staggered releases. I mean,
absolutely not.
And yet they still do. So frustrating.
Is it going to be? So it's going to be. It's only going to be card based, isn't it? There's not going to be any eShop download for it.
I don't think so.
A lot of the handhelds are going that way now.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
The 3DS eShop is, I think, I haven't been on it for an absolute age because I haven't been on my 3DS for an absolute age, but because as with all Nintendo handhelds, it essentially eventually turns into just a Pokemon machine.
But
the eShop was finally not that shit last time I was on it, which is
Game Freak seem to stick with what they like, so I don't see them doing that. they haven't changed much
in
14
10
years.
years' time, when like holographic game transfers are the norm, like Game Freak will finally release like an e-shop download of Pokemon.
Yeah.
They'll still have the same graphics of this and more.
To be fair, Sean, there'll probably be so much heat on them that they still probably won't, just to smite people. They'll just not do it.
They're quite a stubborn company. Good old
Yeah.
Freak. But no, exciting for that. I think it should be good. I'm hoping it's good. I hope they don't do the old Mass Effect 3 and just destroy a franchise.
Do not speak.
Well, I think because a lot of the appeal of Pokemon is the meta game, as long as that isn't completely fucked up, like.
Well, they're bringing in a new typing, a fairy typing, which should shake things up a bit. I don't know how many Pokemon are getting like secondary typing from the old gens.
It seems quite a few, actually.
Yeah, I know that. I think Maryl's one. He gets like water fairy typing or something.
Clefairy, Clefable, Jigglypuff, all of those. They're all getting
that makes
as well.
sense.
I think Godvar gets one as well, which is. I like that Pokemon. I hope it doesn't mess it up.
To be fair, like fairy typing sounds stupid and shit, but then when you look at the typing chart for it, it has some nice resists. It's really sad. It's a really sad thing to say, but
no, I felt the same way though when like Steel and stuff were released. It was like
sacrilege, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like so against everything that you're used to, but now it's just part of it.
Yeah. It's sort of like it fits now with it quite nicely, actually.
And they usually refine the typing after like one game.
You have to say, like, Game Freak, in the entire time that they've been doing this, they've been doing the same game over and over and over and over again, and they've yet to make a bad game. Like, they've yet to make a bad Pokemon game.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's part of that though is because they just won't take they're not bad Pokemon games, but they're Pokemon games that don't add anything to it. You know what I mean? There are games in the series that just don't really add anything new other than a handful of new Pokemon. I 100%
disagree with that. Every new generation has brought something new out. Like it might not be new in the same way that it's graphics or like gameplay mechanics or anything like that, but every new iteration of the game has brought something in, like Pokemon breeding, day and night cycles, and then the day and night cycles affect the type of Pokemon and like the moves that they have and when they evolve and stuff like that.
There are though games within a generation that are sort of rehashes or recombinations of earlier games. For example, I'm thinking of I'm trying to think which one it was. It was it was for the Game Boy Advance, and it was maybe
Pokemon Leaf Green.
No, maybe like Platinum or something like that. I forget, but there's ones which are kind of recombinations of the first
Fire Red and Leaf Green.
Yeah.
I
think you mean the third one in the series. So
exactly.
So if you had for example, Red and Blue, the third one was Yellow. And
Yellow I wouldn't agree with, because Yellow still had the addition of the Pokemon walking behind you. Well, Pikachu walking behind you. But all of the other kind of third games are sort of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I would.
But I agree. Every generation, every sort of big jump, they do change things up a bit.
There was Ruby and Emerald, and then Ruby and Sapphire, and then there was Emerald. I don't think Emerald really brought. Yeah,
Emerald was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But Pokemon as a franchise, the actual games themselves. I'm not saying they're for kids, but if you play through the actual game, it is sort of younger audience. But the metagame. It's all about the adults.
Stats-laden mess, that is. Showdown. Jesus.
Yeah, it's a bit of an aughts fest.
It's not a mess.
It's perfect. The numbers.
I feel like I'm by myself in this one.
Screw you, man. Screw you. I'm going to go play right now.
Chris scribbling like attack stats on the wall.
Yeah. One of my resistances, Chris.
Me and Chris have had many a session on Showdown where we've tried to outbest each other. And I'll beat him, and then he'll shift his team up again and beat me, and then I'll shift mine apart, and it's like chess,
Yeah, no, you guys, there was a certain point when you guys basically had almost exactly the same team, except one or two, and it was like you were just standing off the rough edges of like the perfect team. Every battle you had, you were kind of like, okay, but now I'll change this, and it was just constantly just adjusting here and there slightly, just refining the team. And I was just like, I choose you, Charmander.
It literally was getting to the point where we were doing the perfect moves every time. So the games were lasting like over 100 moves because we were just countering each other so perfectly that the game was lasting so long. It was almost like the perfect storm of moves that we were doing. It was like it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it, but it was so taxing.
I ran out of PP in one match and had to start using struggle.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's how long they were going on for. But what happened was we sharpened our teams so much. They were so polished and refined that we started playing other people and we were just taking them apart.
Dominating them. going up the ranks so quickly, like getting so much what is the points again? I can't remember what the point system is. So there's
it's thousands. You were 1900 or something crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like the highest one had like 2,400 points or something, and I had like 1,900, and I'd done it in about like 3 weeks or something like that. These people have been playing for years and years and years.
Jesus. I'm gonna.
It was like a
ridiculous
50-point win streak.
I'm gonna take a month off work and just like build the best team. Come on and just beat both of you, and then never play it again in like a blaze of glory.
It really didn't take us that long, did it, Gav, to figure out? As long as you're basically following the Smogan guideline, and then you tweak it based on what you think is gonna work.
Yeah.
It doesn't take you that long, or as long as you think it would do, and it's free, so everyone should go and try it. I encourage everyone listening to this to go and try Pokemon Showdown. Completely illegal, but yeah.
Don't say that.
And if you don't like,
I think you should give the first Gaming Buggers gold stamp for Showdown, Pokemon Showdown. Check it out.
I think this would have to be unanimous, and I'm not sold.
Bloody Rye, the Russia of the Gaming Buggers security
not going to be part of Gaming Buggers from now on, so the rest of us say that Showdown is the gold stamp.
I hope you've enjoyed listening to Rye's tones.
Alright, Russia, calm down.
This is so weird as well, because Rye is the most non-committal person in the world, and he's now making a commitment against this one thing that we really didn't want him to.
That's how I roll.
Perfect. I've got a game I would like to talk about, or a trial of a game. There's a game called, I believe it's called Super Shot. Let me just double check that.
Sounds rubbish.
Shot. It's a right. Let us just. I know there was an article about Kotaku. It's basically a game. It looks. Shut up. It looks very much like a combination between Mirror's Edge and.
I like that game.
Yeah, no, it's all those kind of God, this is a very badly phrased. It's all those kind of lots of white, officey looking spaces with sort of very strong reds and very strong greens.
Beto.
But basically, time only moves when you move, so it turns it into kind of a cross between Mirror's Edge and Braid. So it's kind of half a sort of first-person shooter, half a puzzle game, because if you move in the right way, you can avoid enemy shots, and you sort of set up perfect gunning runs, and it's very good. And it was made in a game jam over just I think a day or something. So it's just a trial at the minute. But they're trying to make a full game, and it looks very good.
Puzzle,
I think you might actually quite enjoy it, Chris.
Puzzle in the regard of Portal style, where you have to sort of think what you're doing, or puzzle like the old school adventure style puzzle, or
where very much the Portal kind of style of puzzle, where it's all about movement in the right way and firing at the right time, and more of a puzzle where you're refining, you sort of, as you go through the level and find out where certain enemies are, when they fire, that kind of thing, you refine, you run through until because you probably die the first couple of times, and then you sort of, and it's very, very, because it's so stylish, it's one of those games that's very enjoyable to go, to try again and get that perfect run, and it's so satisfying to fire a shot off and then move to your left and see as the bullet streaks towards the enemy. It's lovely. It's so nice.
You know that image of the card where he's got his hand in his face? That is literally what I've been doing for the past 10 minutes of that description.
I
cannot describe how much I do not want to play that game.
I can imagine the rage, going the wrong way and having to start again. And yeah, it sounds good though. It sounds interesting.
I hate games like that where you have to refine your approach every single time. It's
exactly.
like dying for the sake of dying.
You could do it.
Get perfectly
you could
right.
do it in one. You can easily do it in one.
That's not going to happen.
I have to say, I thought that sounded cool, but then I've seen that screenshot you've posted, and
it doesn't look as good. You should watch a video after we've finished recording this podcast, because or even, to be honest, if you just Google it, it's called Super Hot. Literally, the trial of it is only about 5 minutes long. It's more of a proof of concept than anything.
Is the full game going to be about 15 minutes long? You have to pay fucking £50 for it or something like that.
What the hell was that game you made us play that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that? That like 30-second game, whatever it was. It was ridiculous.
I don't know
remember what it's called.
So I say,
do you mean like 30 Flights of Lovin' or something like that?
None of you played 30 Flights of Lovin'.
Because no one wanted to pay $6.99 for a 20-minute experience.
It's 20 minutes worthwhile.
I say, Chris, you should do the Let's Play.
Is that what you tell the ladies, Sean?
Sorry, what did you say, Ryan?
You should play the Let's Play on this game. The Let's Play.
Let's Play.
No. Fraudulent slip by Ryan.
Oh my god.
Let's go. Jesus.
Alright, okay. I'll tell you what. For the purposes of entertainment, I'll let's play whatever shit this is.
Yeah,
I'll tell you how bad it is.
There you go.
What, Super Hot or the 30
Super
Flights
Hot.
of
Yeah,
Super
no,
Hot.
Super Hot. No.
Do it.
No, there is no chance in hell I'm playing 30 Flights of Lovin'. It's not gonna happen.
It sounds like one of those dating simulators.
Sounds like what?
You know those dating things from like back in like the 90s or whatever, or it's like
It's nothing like
plumbers don't wear
dating.
ties or whatever. Look that up. I'm sure it was called plumbers.
Man, my shimmies.
Alright, okay, so Planetary Annihilation then. What is it? What's going on?
Well, if anyone hasn't played Total Annihilation, stop listening to this and fuck off. It's brilliant.
Excellent.
There are
Gav,
90% of people that will listen.
Gav, I've not played Total Annihilation.
Yes, you have.
Don't make me buy
Yes,
you.
you have. You have played Total Annihilation.
I haven't.
You actually have.
You haven't played.
I've not
You
played
must have.
it.
You
I've
must
never
have.
played it.
What?
I've never played. I'm not joking. I've not played it.
I've only played it for about an hour, but I've played it.
Oh my god.
Man,
What's going
what
on?
is this?
I've not played it.
Chris, later on I'll show you this.
I think
I
Planetary
own it.
Annihilation
It's on my
looks
computer,
great.
but
I've seen the videos for it, and I watched the Kickstarter thing for it as well. I think it looks excellent.
Yeah, it
but
looks really good.
I've never played Total Annihilation.
Oh man, you're missing
Well,
out.
back in 1997, Total Annihilation came about, and it changed RTS.
Yeah.
People always hype on about AoE and all the rest of it, but it was TA that was the pioneer. It had the graphics were like sprites, but it had this sort of 3D element to it. It had 3D terrain, which affected your projectiles, so your tanks and things. Like tanks couldn't just fire in a straight line infinitely. If there was a hill, it would hit the hill, which was a new thing at the time.
Okay.
And yeah, the complexity was what really got me when I first played. I mean, I was about 9 or something when I first played it, but
Yeah,
it was, yeah, it was so complicated for like unit-wise. Anyway, I mean, you had your basic resources. You have metal and energy, and you need to collect them. There's a metal sites scattered all over the place, and you can build energy wherever. You know, different types of geothermal and solar and all that sort of fusion. But
damn shit, I'm not playing.
Blasphemy.
so it's going to be a running theme, is it? But no, it was very good. It was well ahead of its time. It's hard to describe though. Like it had online play, which was my first experience of competitive RTS. I think it was called the Boneyards or something. It was good.
Yeah.
Good old cave dog. And
Also,
yeah, go on.
I was going to say it has one of the best soundtracks of all time as well. Like,
Yeah, Jeremy Soule. We're talking
Yeah,
about before.
seriously, like amazing.
Yeah, good soundtrack. Jeremy Soule. It might have been one of his first ventures actually. Because that was 97.
It was a
I
long
don't think he
time
did
ago,
much
yeah.
before that.
What you mentioned before that you made a mistake earlier with regards to the soundtrack for the Planetary Annihilation.
Oh, it wasn't the soundtrack.
producer?
Earlier on, we were talking. Yeah, the producer. It wasn't Chris Taylor that did Planetary Annihilation, as far as I'm aware. He did Total Annihilation. I don't think he's involved in Planetary. I might be wrong in that, but I sort of agreed with Chris earlier on, then realised I might be wrong. But no, it's good. It's something people should check out. It has like a cult following. I think people still play it.
It's available on GOG.com as well.
Yeah,
for
but,
fairly, fairly cheap, so it's easy to get a hold of.
I bought it off GOG and it didn't have the soundtrack. The soundtrack doesn't work. I was very upset.
We should do a playthrough with Total Annihilation, because I also got a GOG in. I've not really put any time into it. So we should have a game sometime.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of what was around at the time, like Red Alert and things, it's miles apart from them. People always say they're better and all that stuff, but it's a better game.
It's a better game.
Fair enough. I mean, there's two things that I think, because Andy didn't play Total Annihilation. Andy, for the people who don't know, is our friend and isn't taking part in this because he's a pussy. But
Fifth Ranger.
He is going to be recording videos.
Yeah, I generally agree with his opinion, and like without nostalgia and without having played it at the time, he didn't really feel it. He wasn't getting into it as much as like he does other games, even older games, and he like really didn't sell it to me in any single way, shape, or form. So I'm kind of a bit skeptical about it, and I think that's kind of how I'll feel about it as well. That I didn't play it at the time, so I'm a bit stuffed now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Chris, I mean, you played Supreme Commander. It's basically a very similar concept. If you've never played Total Annihilation before, you'd probably like Supreme Commander more.
Right. Okay.
But it's a very, very similar concept.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this is it. I mean, like now these days, there's RTSs that are very similar and they're better, they're more polished and refined and everything. But I like my old RTSs. I still play AoE 2 and all the rest of it. But this is why I like the concept of Planetary Annihilation, because it's essentially the same game with some more modernized tweaks.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that because if it can capture that same gameplay experience that TA did back in '97. Then it'll be a good game.
I am really excited about Planetary Annihilation, actually. It's got quite a lot of buzz, and the video that he released on Kickstarter after he did get kickstarted looks really good. And
yeah, it looks pretty good.
The units are great, and it looks like he's really enthused about doing the game, which is always going to be, a help to
definitely.
actually making a game if you actually want to make it. So,
yeah.
I'll just wait for the release and not pay the £65 for the alpha.
The only thing that worries me about, I mean, this is something that I'm quite interested to know what other people think about as well with Kickstarter, is that his funding goal was $900,000, and he raised $2.2 million. So does that mean he's gonna make twice as good a game as he would have made at $900,000? Or
well, yeah, he's done. Did you not see the stretch goals?
Yeah, I did see the stretch goals, but I question whether or not it is going to be like there's going to be diminishing returns on how good a game you can actually make.
I did read an article before where they were saying that this has actually become a bit of a problem with these massively over-successful Kickstarter campaigns.
Yep.
That for gaming especially, because then they're sort of under pressure to make so much of a larger game.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have those resources to do that and overstretch themselves and make an inferior product in the end of it because it's been so successful. And that wasn't part of the original plan. They have to make an amendment to the plan.
I mean, Ouya was a good example of this because they've actually been under investigation for the past month or so by, I'm not sure whether it was Kickstarter themselves, but Kickstarter certainly initiated the investigation.
Yeah.
And it came back fine. Like they said, everything was fine, but it's the first time that someone's actually been investigated for not delivering on a promise that they made during a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh.
And I think that bodes like well for the future. That system is in place just in case.
Yeah.
There needs to be regulation in that. Otherwise,
I think it's difficult when you've got a final overall product like a game or a console like Ouya. Because you're right. I mean, where does the money go after that? But things like Oculus Rift, that went way over. That was like double or treble what its goals were. But you don't mind because that's going to be an ongoing development, and you know the money's going to.
I've got to admit that the Oculus Rift looks like from the videos I've seen of people using them. Obviously, I can't speak for how well they work, although they apparently work amazing. They look like a really sexily designed product. Like it looks like they've done a good job designing
it's going to be amazing.
Has anybody seen the video of somebody made, I think for an art piece, somebody made a decapitation simulator for it, where you're in what's it called? Where the blade comes down. The word's completely escaped my mind right now. And basically, you can look up to see the blade coming down.
Guillotine.
Yeah, guillotine simulator. Yeah, and it comes down and chops your head off. In the video, whenever the blade comes down, people probably jump, probably shake with the when the blade hits them because it feels so real, which is promising.
This is something I haven't actually told you guys, but I have actually tried Oculus Rift.
No, I haven't.
Yep, there's one in London in the Virgin Gamer base. Sean, it is free to go and try. So you can go and try this as well. I'll put the details after this podcast, but I have tried it, and at the same time, I would say it is the future. I think it is the next generation beyond the next generation of things to do with video games. And at the same time, I don't think it's ready yet. It really isn't, because it's not. When you're turning your head, you expect to then have your image turn at the same time. When you turn your head in Oculus, you turn and then it turns a split second after, but it's enough for you to go, that's not right, that's not right, and you're looking left and right, and it's not quite matching one to one what you need it to be. And as a result, I felt really, really sick afterwards.
Would you say that it's a problem? Would you say that it's a problem with the technology or the games themselves, like the programming for the machine?
Probably a bit of both. Probably a bit of, like, the technology isn't at where they need to be at, hence why they haven't actually released it yet.
Yeah.
And a case of developers not being able to program it to the optimization that they need to in order to get it at this one-to-one spectrum. I mean, the games I played that I didn't get to play, unfortunately, the CCP Eve Valkyrie, which is supposed to be the best one. But it's CCP have made an EVE Online VR version of it, where you actually in the cockpit of one of the ships themselves.
Yeah, it looks great.
They're going to release this as a game. It's called EVE Valkyrie, and like, because Valkyrie has VR in the name, that's why they've called it Valkyrie. But at E3, one of my colleagues did actually go and get to try that, and he said it's one of the greatest experiences he's ever had in his life. Like, he could. After that, he was totally bought an Oculus and totally.
Although he did spend the first 20 years of life in a bubble, so.
Well, he does do a lot of hard
Russian
drugs,
gulag.
and he is quite out there. But no, he fucking loved it. He really did, and I think because of that. And he was trying a different version of the Oculus that I tried.
Was
it
an
updated
1080p
version.
One?
It is the 1080p one, yeah. So it is an updated version of it, yeah. So I think they are getting there. I think they are going to get there with it, but they're still a few years away from it being the next big thing in gaming, I think. So yeah.
Oh.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah, definitely. And just as an aside, I think Sony are actually developing their own version of it as well. That it's not made by Oculus or in any way associated with it.
I think console integration will be a massive boost for the technology.
Well,
although then again, not necessarily, because we thought that about motion controls, and
nobody thought that about motion controls.
Yeah, that's true. only Sony and Xbox and Microsoft thought that about motion controls. After the Wii was released, and
everyone jumped on the bandwagon, but like, I love Sony's approach. It's like they just released a £30 controller and went, "Yeah, this is our like equivalent of the Kinect and the fucking Wii U and all of that." It's like, £30. It took us like a minute to think of it. It's a ball on the end of a controller. Yeah. And then Microsoft went balls in deep with this Kinect, and it just has not taken off.
I like that the Kinectors have far more modded capabilities than
beyond
it's ever been used for the
gaming.
Xbox. It's been used in hospitals. It's been used in everything. It's like the technology's there, but it's just actual gaming just isn't suited to it at all.
Yeah, like there hasn't been a good Kinect game at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And just to go back to the Oculus as well for a second, like, I think even without the head tracking and stuff, even just to wear, like, I think the immersion would be enough. I think that would add something to it. It doesn't have to, head track. You don't have to have, where you look, the character looks or whatever. Just even using a controller, but having the screen that close, that immersive.
But it's still screen. It's still 3D screen.
Would just add enough to it that, I would be happy even if it didn't head track,
Have you seen the video where the guy plays Team Fortress 2 and he's got the track mat thing, or the track system where he's like running and it runs with him, and then he's got Oculus on, and then he's got the gun that's acting as a controller.
Is that the omnidirectional treadmill?
Yeah, it's the omnidirectional treadmill. So he's got Oculus on. He's got this controller that's a gun, and then he's firing, and it fires at people, and then he's got the treadmill as well. So that is proper full-on immersion into Team Fortress 2.
That's a stark contrast to casuals, though. Filthy casuals. But it's I think in the future there'll be more of a discrepancy between like people who just want to chill out and play a little game or console with their friends, and then there's going to be this market for people that want the full immersion and how big a section of your house or flat or whatever you've got will you need to have like an omnidirectional treadmill with your your VR goggles.
But having said that, Rock Band. A full Rock Band setup with all the drums and the guitars and the bass and stuff. It's a fairly big commitment, and that sold an absolute shit ton. I mean, it then plummeted absolutely once everybody got sick of buying plastic pieces of crap. But
absolutely.
Oh God, Tony Hawk Ride.
Don't get me wrong though. If they brought it out and it worked perfectly, Oculus Rift, not omnidirectional treadmill, I'd get that. I'd do it. Damn right.
I doubt I could ever afford an omnidirectional treadmill, but I'd certainly like an Oculus Rift.
It's going to get to a point where it's going to be like dark science or some shit like that, where we're going to have like pods that we just plug ourselves into, like
I also kind
inside the game.
I love that. Yeah, bring it on.
With the
reality that is better than real reality. It's like
with the treadmill though, like I will say one thing, it's the same reason, one of the same reasons, apart from having shit games, that I was never interested in like the Wii or the the Move or anything, because I want to, when I play computer games, I want to sit down and relax and sit in a chair and play some games.
Absolutely.
I don't want to,
I
don't want to be running about.
What really annoys me about the Xbox One is that you've got all these commands that you can do with your hands, and you swipe and you say Xbox on and all of that. Well, why? What was wrong with just pressing a button to turn it on? What was wrong with that half inch of moving yourself to press the button to turn the controller on, or to move it from left to right?
People want to live in fucking Minority Report.
Yeah, it's like that image where it's like what people think the Xbox One is going to be like, and it says like "Good morning, Xbox One," and he says "Good morning, Batman." Yeah. And what the reality is going to be is like Xbox on, what? Xbox on, turning down.
Yeah. Or mention the Xbox One to a friend, and it automatically turns itself on.
Yeah.
Are you talking about me, David? No, Xbox One, turn off.
Yeah. Transmits your fucking data and image and body measurements to Microsoft. Good God, we sound like conspiracy nutcases.
Transmitting to the NSA.
Yeah, exactly.
Xbox, no!
Hey, does anybody want a sandwich? I've mentioned child pornography. No, Xbox.
Xbox, why? You didn't play me enough.
In the update, they can actually transform into, that robot from RoboCop.
Yeah. You have 5 seconds to comply.
This is a tangent. To be honest, that's us out of stuff to talk about, really.
Do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
This has been Gaming Buggers. We'll post on the blog and YouTube, and we're going to do some Let's Plays at some point soon. So, thank you for listening.
You stay classy,
cool,
San
thanks.
Diego.
Bye.
See you later.